In today's video, we're going to talk about Procreate Basics Part 2. If you haven't watched the first one, I recommend going back and watching it. My name is Sam Levitt, and I'm so happy you're here. So today we're going to go over layers and the adjustments tools. We'll go over adjustment tools that adjust color, blur, kind of more After Effects, and then we'll go over layers. Right now I'm just going to speed this up so you can see how I make basically a little bit of art so that we can have something to go off of, so I can show you how the adjustments change the art pieces. Alright, so first we're going to start with is hue, saturation, and brightness. And this isn't the easiest to see, but the darkest layer you'll see slightly changes color from red to green. With the hue, saturation changes the brightness or vibrancy of the color, and then brightness changes the darker or lighter of the color. The next one is color balance, and we're just going to pick the layer option, and this just changes the tint of the color. So it can go from blue to yellow, yellow to green, those types of things. And you can, if you've got a really detailed piece, you can do it with the highlights, the midtones, and the shadows. The next one is curve. So if you are into photo editing, this is like the gradient curve. I believe that's what it's called. So this is basically just another way to change the shading for the gamma. And then there's a red, a blue, and a green. And that's just to change the colors with that if you want to get in the really nitty gritty color details. The next one is the gradient map. So the gradient map's actually really fun, and I try to show you first, and you can just see that the colors are changing. And instead I just merged the 3 layers together because gradient maps work off of a complete grayscale. So I click on one of them and you see that it's a scale from left to right. So the far left will be the darker tones and the far right will be the lighter tones. Just kidding, I guess I don't click on it. But yeah, that's one I can get more detailed into today. Today is just basically to introduce to you so you can try them out for yourselves. The next we've got the Gaussian blur. So it's going to do just one layer, and you'll tap on it and then drag to the side. You can see it goes from blurry to basically nothing really fast. The next one, I'm also going to show you how you can do it in a brush form. A lot of these you can just do them in a brush, so whatever brush you're using. You can change the strength with your finger, like I show here. So you can also use that with a brush if you wanted to be like a really fine shadow or something that you wanted more control over. The next one is a motion blur. So this one you just drag in the direction that you want, and that will change the intensity and the direction. The next one is a perspective blur, and there's 2 different options for this one. You've got the positional, so based off of where you put it will be where it blurs, or the directional, and that one just gives you a little bit more control. So there's a little dial on the circle that pops out itself, and that will give you more control over what direction the shadow or blur comes from. The next chunk gets us into more of the After Effects. So this one is noise. So make sure you're watching this on a bigger screen because the darker layer gets just more grainy. I turned the scale up on this one, which is why it got all white at the top. So you can mess with all these different settings. There's a couple of different options, and it can just be fun to play with. I haven't really used the noise tool at all, if we're being completely honest. So play with that if you wish. This is me messing with the scale to show you that there are different options. I think it's cool if it's like an integral part of your art because it makes it really easy to get that effect. The next one is sharpen. Can't really see it on this, but it's kind of like sharpening in a photo editing tool. The next one is bloom, and I make it so we have a dark background just so you can see this a little bit better. Sorry about the ring light glare. So bloom, it's basically like making it like a bright, almost like a light. It's hard to describe until you see it, but it's like a blur, but it's almost like as if you're looking at like little Christmas lights, and that you get to see like the little ring halos around them. maybe that's not the best way to describe it. But anyways, that you can see on the screen that there's a couple of different ways to do this. Burn will increase the light, so it will add more white the higher the burn. The size will basically make it so the bigger the ring of light that there is. And then the last one was transition, which makes like basically how tight it is. The next one is glitch. So this is just an After Effects. So once you finish your piece, you want to add some techno glitches. You've got that. There are a couple of different options for that too that you can play with. There's halftone, and halftone basically, it's like the comics, basically, if that makes sense, like how there's like the little dots everywhere. So yeah, there's a lot of fun ways to play with it. There's a newspaper one, which makes it always black and white or grayscale. The screen print one and the full color one. I think the screen print one's the coolest, but that's up to you. Whatever works best for your art specifically. The last one is chromatic aberration. So I was having a hard time getting it to work. I think it was the color issue with the perspective one, but the displace one worked just fine. So you can drag over, it'll give you a red and a blue. And this one I kind of play around with for a little bit. You can see that I'm trying to get the other one to work, and for some reason I couldn't. But then I switched to a different layer, and it worked just fine with the perspective option. So I don't know what I was doing wrong. It must just be the art piece itself. Maybe someone in the comments will tell me what I was doing wrong. And this one also has some adjustments that you can make to it. So I'm just going over things, like I said earlier, so you can try them out for yourselves. This is liquefy. So on this one, I'm on the pink layer, and I basically just show you a little bit of all the different types of liquefies that there are. I think this looks kind of weird with this text, but it was a good way of showing it. So there's twist to the left, twist to the right, push, pinch, expand, crystals, edge, and then reconstruct, which I show you at the end, and it just puts everything back together. So this is me just showing you all the different options. I've seen people use this for coffee, like if they're drawing like a coffee. This is me using the reconstruct, so it's pushing all of them back to their original pixelation thing, which I think it was fascinating to watch. So if you need something to entertain yourself, that's an option. You can also change the strength, the distortion, the momentum, the pressure, all that kind of stuff. So this is the clone tool, the very last one. So wherever that circle is on that layer, so I'm on the pink layer, and you can see I just locked it in place by pressing and holding. But you can see that wherever I'm drawing, it's cloning that create, the pink create. So I'm utilizing this one more now. I just more or less learned about it the other day because I didn't fully understand it. But when it's not locked in place, you'll see it follows, and so it will recreate the pink wherever I put the brush. But that is the adjustments tab. I hope that helped you. Next, we're going to jump into layers. And so I first just show you that layers go from top to bottom order. So whatever's on the top is going to be the closest to you. Whatever's at the bottom will be farthest away from you, closest to the canvas, if that makes sense. I'm just going to walk you through all of the different options when you tap a layer. So we've got rename and select. Rename is, I show you that you can rename it whatever you want. I rename it pink because this is my pink layer. And then you can select it. That basically, I didn't show you, but it selects the whole layer in the selection tool. So it will select everything but that layer. You've got copy. Here I'm showing you alpha lock. So you've got that. That stays on the same layer. So it's basically like a clipping mask, which I'll show you in a second. This is just the mask option. So the mask option runs off of a grayscale, kind of like the gradient map did earlier. So black erases and white brings it back. So I was using the black, it was erasing the pink. Now I'll go perfect white. If you tap on the corner of the color wheel near the white, it will give you complete white without you having to worry about whether or not it's like kind of white, off-white, grayish white. So this is me getting rid of the mask, or trying to. Next we've got clipping mask. So I made the pink layer a clipping mask to the white layer, so it didn't really look any different, to be honest. But I tried to move it so you could see that it was just over the white layer. And here I am, I put a clipping mask over the pink layer, and similar to Alpha Lock, I can just color, and it colors just the pink part of the wherever the pixels are for the pink, basically it will color over that. Next we've got invert, so that just changes the colors, it inverts them. Next we have got reference. So if you have a reference layer, it basically makes it so if you're ever doing like a selection type thing, you can select everything but that, or if you had an outline, you could do use the reference to color in but on a different layer if you were using the selection tool. So I just showed that it's not coloring on the pink. I had the layer below it, but it wouldn't have colored on the pink no matter what, because of how the selection tool was working. So next we have got, we turn the reference off. Now we've got merge down. So combine down turns it into a group. Merge down makes it the layers become one. So if you pinch together, you can also make the layers become one. I kept wanting to turn my clone tool on. So if you ever want to get rid of a group, you can either flatten it, and that will merge all the layers in that group together, or if you want them to stay separate and you no longer want them to be in a group, just drag the layer, all of the other layers outside of that group, either above it or below it, and that will make it so it's no longer a group. If you press on a layer with 2 fingers, it will select all of it. If you swipe with 2 fingers, it will alpha lock it, and if you tap with 2 fingers, you'll be able to change the opacity. You can also change the opacity by tapping the N. Someday I'm going to go over all of these different layer adjustments, so stay tuned for that. It's a little too in-depth to do in this video. Thank you for watching. I appreciate you guys being here. Please like, subscribe if this video was of any help to you. Thanks for being here.